please.
Bomber clad shoot up on fire, man.
And welcome to a special edition of Punchlines. This is Maestro. I'm here with one of my best brethrens in the world of YouTube boxing. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Danny Glover himself. I'm not going to give out the full government. He goes by Danny Glover. We're going to keep it as Danny Glover. He's not too old for this ish. All right, we share some things in common. He was an amateur boxer, but unlike me, he was a standout amateur boxer. He's also a cut man. I'm not a cut man, but he's a cut man. But we're both licensed trainers, all right, in the sport of professional boxing, amateur boxing, and we are both two brethren of Caribbean origin. But we're deviating on this one because on this particular topic, this is the hardcore fight fans fight. There's no doubt about that. This fight is for the hardcore fight fans. I'm actually surprised it's on pay-per-view. All right. He's of Caribbean origin. I'm from Caribbean origin. But you know what? I'm riding with El Caribeño, the only Caribbean fighter that's actually in this fight. My man is going to accuse me of having brethren bias, but I'm okay with it because it's all about David Morel Jr. taking on none other than a guy who some people have called a boogeyman. Other people have said he's ducked up until this point, or at least slow-rolled his way to elite championship world-level competition, David Benavidez. But listen, we're going to get into X and O's of this in a moment. First and foremost, though, I got to give the floor over, all right, to one quarter of what we call Fight Talk Live. All right, salute to October Red, salute to Basic Head. But this is a Maestro versus Danny Glover debate. Danny, the floor is yours. I'm excited. Let's go.
Yes, welcome, people. You know where it is. It's Danny Glover, Fight Fan TV Live, here with Maestro America, my Caribbean brother. You know, we're talking Jamaica, we're talking Cuba. And listen, even Ecuador is slightly with the Caribbean team. Slightly.
I did hear he has some Dominican background. Now, where did Danny go? Danny, man, click the link again. Look, Danny's been doing his championship rounds in training. He's been doing 11 and 12 rounds of heavy spars, getting ready for this debate for weeks now. All right, so I'm assuming Danny's going to come back. All right. He did do a full 12 rounds of sparring last week. All right. He was all chippy and cheerful this weekend when the fight was announced, saying it was going to be made official. But go for it. I was actually making the point that I did hear through the grapevine that David Benavidez does have some Dominican heritage as well through one of his grandparents. So there you go. He's got a little bit of a Caribbean connection there as well. But go back to it, Danny. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so there you go, Caribbean heritage here. So it's going to be some Afro-Latino heat going up in there on February the 2nd. I can't wait for it. I'm surprised it's on pay-per-view as well. I know there was talks of Gervonta Davis and trying to get his fight over on the same show, but I think this is good that he stands alone. Me and Maestro, we've been debating about this for quite some time, so it's only right we have the first debate now because we're not going to wait till next year on Fight Week. That's too long. Let's get this going. We've seen the press conference last night. It was getting on and cracking. Most of it, I didn't understand what they were saying when they were arguing. Obviously, Maestro, he will be able to translate.
Yeah, I can actually go to a little clip, actually, because apparently, in addition to having to teach David Benavidez how to fight at his level, right? Apparently, okay, David Morel Jr. is also having to introduce basic maths concepts to David Benavidez. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen, and let's go. Let's have a listen to this here. I'm talking, of course, about David Morel Jr. and David Benavidez. Here we go.
Producto, ¿de qué hablas, güey? ¿De qué hablas? No que eres mexicano, que no sé qué. Tú sabes español, ¿verdad? Los productos a 1 por 1, 2 por 2, esos.
Yo soy mexicano, no entiendo qué quiere decir con los productos.
Papi, la tabla numérica.
¿La qué?
La tabla numérica. No saben.
So he's talking to them about, I don't know how this happened, but they started talking about the concept of products in math and the times tables. And apparently David Benavidez was unfamiliar with these these concepts there.
Tampoco.
Usted van a la escuela, comienza la merienda.
No.
Que si tú te sabes los productos.
He basically told him that he went to a shit school if he doesn't know what those things are. Anyways, there are other clips there that we can go to later where they were kind of going at each other, cursing in English. But Danny, before we get into the X's and O's of this fight and why we're backing one guy versus another guy, they're both coming out of the super middleweight division, right? They both only fought one time as light heavyweights. Canelo, one thing these guys do share in common is they held secondary titles when Canelo had the major title in the division, the undisputed title. David Benavidez was holding the WBC interim. David Morel Jr. was holding the WBA Reggie belt, the regular belt, and Canelo wasn't fighting them. So they kind of both have that in common. But talk to me about why you see greatness. Because honestly, if he does beat David Morel Jr., I will consider David Benavidez to be a great fighter. Why do you see greatness in David Benavidez? What is it that you see and have seen throughout the course of his career, Danny?
I've just seen from the first time I saw him fighting, I just thought this kid at the time, he has exceptional speed for his size, puts combinations together like no one I've seen in that weight division when I'm talking about the super middleweight division at the time, because that's where most of his fights are. So that's where we can mainly judge him on that. And we can't say, oh, yeah, but it's a new weight because David Morrell's coming out of that same division. As you pointed out, they've both only fought at light heavy once each. So it's a fair fight. There's no weight bullying. There's no dragging a man up or pulling a man down. It's all even Stevens, you know. They've been linked with each other for a while. It's good that they're both actually meeting each other at a weight where they're both going to be probably a lot more energetic and hydrated. No one can say, oh, I stay too long at the weight. So all those little mini benefactors will be out of the window. There'll be no excuses. So I like this fight. But with David Benavidez, you know, the combination punching, the ability to keep the tempo and intensity up throughout the fights. Shout out Tony Pugilis. And yeah, I just think that's what I just see as him as a great fighter in my eyes. He's improved on his defense. I noticed that he was working with Rigondeaux in his last fight. He was, you know, pulling some slips and shots like that. Both of them, people have said about their last fights, they wasn't too impressed with them. But people tend to say that David Benavidez performed better against the better opponent out of the two. David Benavidez has been on record saying that he did like break his knuckle in camp and he had stitches, so that sort of hindered his performance a bit. As we know, fighters going to fights with niggles and injuries all the time. David Morrell is a very good talent. And so, yeah, if we're talking about David Benavidez's last 4 fights, you know, we're talking about Caleb Plant, we're talking about Demetrius Andrade, we're talking about Alexander Vosnik.
David Lemieux would be the last one in the last 4.
No, Lemieux.
Yeah, last 4 fights, it was Lemieux, right? It was Caleb Plant, Demetrius Andrade, Gavosnik. Those are
last 4 fights would be Sorry, David Lemieux, Caleb Plant, Andrade, and Gavosnik in the last 4 fights. So yeah, well done there. So yeah, talking about that in we've seen he's dominated in all of them. In the last 3 of them, people was picking against David Benavidez in the Caleb Plant fight. I remember that. I won money on the Andrade fight against my boy Starter. He thought Andrade would beat him. I remember Base thought that Andrade would beat him as well.
Yeah, those are crazy tapes.
Yeah, I remember Base thought that Vosnik would beat David Benavidez as well, and a few other people did as well. I was a bit worried. I thought, because Vosnik, you know, he's the nail. He's, you know, we know his credentials. He was the Ring Magazine champion, beat the long reigning Adonis Stevenson, and he went 10, 11 rounds with Beterbiev and was winning the fight on the cards, even at the time of the stoppage. So, and he came in shape. He had a 6-pack. He was, you know, taller, bigger than Benavidez, which is not something we're used to seeing. And, you know, he came through it. So let me know what it is you see about your boy, David Morrell, why you think he's a great fighter.
Absolutely. So first of all, big up to my man Remy with the super chat. All right, so big up to him. Salute. I'm sticking with my guy Morel Jr. So he's on Team Morel. All right, that's obvious. Big up to my guy Boxing King Media.
Media, shout out, bro. My guy, you know where it is.
All right, and he's asking what's going on with DB's dad bod. You got any news on that one? Last time I saw Daniel Dubois, he was in great shape.
Yeah,
maybe he's been eating too much acai and other things in Brazil. You know what I mean?
Well, last time I saw him, funny enough, was I remember I saw you, Boxing Community. You was videoing him in that fancy car with the lights on top, where he was going to a celebration, kind of event where he was in this nice cream suit. But actually, he was at the British Boxing Southern Area Awards on this weekend, and he still looked in shape. He was in a suit again. So I haven't seen him with no with his top off or anything.
Well, let me ask you something. It just occurred to me. These things come to me out of the blue, especially when I'm talking to geniuses like my man Danny, except he's not a genius when it comes to this fight, but we'll get to that later, right? They're looking for a new James Bond. I got a James Bond for you. Daniel Dynamite Dubois. Feed him the lines. Come on. Let's go. Huh? What a James Bond that would be. Can you imagine Daniel getting out of the Aston Martin, Daniel getting out of the McLaren, Daniel getting out of the chopper, Daniel with the Uzi, brrr, right? Come on. I'm telling you right now, no, get Daniel the job. Daniel Dubois, the next James Bond. Anyways, back to it. So, but before we get to that, actually, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share the video. Invite people over to the party. And make sure you also subscribe to my man, Danny from Fight Fan TV Live. Okay? Go for it, Danny. And then I
just realized what Boxing King Media was talking about. He's talking about David Benavidez' dad bod.
Oh, yes. I was going to get into that. We got sidetracked because, when you're talking about the young, phenomenal heavyweight talent that is Daniel Dynamite Dubois, a man who, by the way, Danny, I did call him a genius for a reason. Danny picked DDD by KO. Your boy picked DDD by KO. So we usually agree. On this one, we differ, but we're going to get into that now. Big up to my man, Lukey, a longtime boxing journalist, my man Lukey over there, Big Dog, 2 storylines. Where is Big David training, and how does Morrell had been in a marquee fight, and how does Morrell do being in a marquee fight? I think most of his fights have been under the radar, not unlike Erislandy Lara prior to Canelo. I don't disagree. And yeah, Tony, you're right. It was Daniel Dynamite Dubois. I got a little excited thinking about the prospects of Triple D starring in the next James Bond movie. The beginning, and then the lion from the MGM. You guys all know. And then he turns over and he's looking at the camera with the gun, the one smoking gun, Daniel Dynamite Dubois, the next James Bond. Anyways, let's get to the topic. Why is it that I favor David Morrell Jr.? So I've been told that I have a very pro-Cuban fighter bias. There may be some truth to that, all right? On my grandfather's side, my family is Jamaican Cuban, and they immigrated from Cuba to Mexico, where he was born, and then he moved to what used to be called British Honduras, where my mother was born. So I'm just giving that little bit of context there. All right, I'm a proud person from the Caribbean, and it goes without saying that Cuba, or I should say of Caribbean background, it should go without saying that Cuba has the best boxing system ever seen in the Caribbean, and I would say has the second best boxing system behind the former Soviet Union. And we can see where the Soviets have gone with their impact on the sport. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, obviously Russia, the Ukraine. You go even further than that, looking at guys like Stanionis coming out of Lithuania. Great system, amateur system. The Cuban system was very highly influenced by that amateur system. So you're combining the intelligence of sports science and training with the rhythm of the Cuban salsa dancer. And that is what David Morel Jr. is. So you look over at his career, right? Danny, you're talking about a guy who's essentially in a huge fight. I would call this underground super fight, a hardcore fan super fight. Bro, he's 11-0. Think about that. He's 11-0, 9 KOs. In his very first fight, he fought a guy that was, well, we're not going to talk about that one. He was 2 and
oh my God. He skipped right over that first fight.
We're gonna skip the first 2 fights. All right. Actually, no, we're only gonna skip the first fight. The first fight was Yendris Rodriguez Valdez, who was 2 and 6. All right. It was a little opener. You know, he's figuring out what the pro game is like. He got a first round knockout. Then they immediately upped the competition, right? Quinton Rankin 15 and 6 in his second fight. Third
15, 6 and 2, by the way.
15, 6 and 2. Yeah, exactly. That's actually even better than 15-6. I take 15, 6 and 2. Follow that up. Now, this is where it gets serious. Lennox Allen. There's no better name in boxing than Lennox. Not necessarily Allen, but the Lennox, great boxing name. Moreover, though, Lennox Allen was 22-0. Now, you're going to say with the one draw, right? And that was for the WBA Interim World Championship at 175 pounds.
But guess what? The caveat is, I will say, I was going to throw the one in, but to be fair, when a man's got a draw with just, the one draw is against Darnell Boone, who is a credible name. So there's no disgrace in that draw.
No, there's no disgrace in that, right? That went the full 12. Mike Gansky, third round knockout. Mario Abel Casares, who many of you will remember dropped and hurt your boy Edgar Berlanga. My guy got him out of there in 1 round. All right, think about that. All right, then he takes on Alantez Fox. That dude's a serious dude. He's a gatekeeper for sure, but he's a serious dude. People just don't blow through that guy. 4th round knockout. Calvin Henderson, again, not the greatest guy, but 4th round knockout, right? 15-1 at the time. Then we go to a fight where I was actually very fearful for what was going on in the ring. I'm talking about when he fought the Kazakh, the undefeated Kazakh, right? Aidos Yerbosnuli. Fam, that went to almost to 12 rounds. He got KO'd in the last round, spent well over a month in a hospital, had to get fixed up. I don't think this guy's ever fought again. Let me look. Has he fought again since? It was bad.
He had a brain damage. I don't think
he had a brain bleed. I remember that. And I also remember thinking to myself that the team that was behind him at the time, led by, I believe it was Kei Karoma's team and the guy with the dreadlocks. I forgot his name. The guy that trained Sandy Ryan in her last fight. He trained Yerbosnuli for that fight. It was awful. He should have pulled him out of there. Then we got Yamaguchi Falcao, Brazilian, big up Triple D, Daniel Dynamite Dubois, eating all that delicious, sweet acai out there in Brazil. I love some acai, especially when it's Brazilian. Anyways, Yamaguchi Falcao, 1st round knockout, Danny. Senna Agbeko, 2nd round knockout. And then, of course, the last fight, Hot Rod Rajivad Kalvajic. That went the full 12, and a lot of people don't think he looked that great, just like a lot of people didn't think David Benavidez looked that great in his last fight. But this is what I've seen. He's tall. He's great at managing a distance. He's got great timing. He's got pop, right? We don't quite know yet just how hard he hits as a light heavyweight because really Hot Rod is a really durable guy. And the only guy that's really ever hurt Hot Rod bad was Betterbeeb, and he hurts pretty much everybody badly, right? But look, you're talking about a young southpaw, slick when he needs to be, hits really hard. I think he's got great range control. I think he's got great footwork. And I also think that he fights very good at levels. He goes to the body when he has to set up his headshots. Overall, I think he's a top tier elite fighter. And because they've moved up to the light heavyweight division, Danny, I obviously they're not Bivol, they're not Beterbiev yet, but this is the fight. This is the bronze fight here. This is the third place matchup as far as I'm concerned. And look, my it's not really a criticism of David Benavidez's performances from my point. More for me, it's a criticism of the fact that he's mostly fought guys that he's brought up from lower weight divisions, including two of the guys you named in his last 4 fights. David Lemieux, super undersized as a super middleweight. And we could say the same about Boo Boo. In fact, right after the Boo Boo fight, Andre Rozier, who's from here in New York City, I've spoken to him many times since then about this, actually said he had no business at 168. He should be fighting at 160, and he wants him to continue his career at 160. So I'm still waiting to see a dominating performance from David Benavidez against a guy his size. We haven't seen it yet.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, let's talk about it.
We'll see that on January. Although I don't know if it will be quite as dominating as you seem to think.
Let's talk about he beat Porky Medina with that big blistering combination which took him out. Then let's get to the last 11 fights, because you're talking about David Morrell as
last 11.
Yeah. So Ronald Gabriel for the WBC title, because David Benavidez is a 2-time former WBC super middleweight champion. That's his weight. So Ronald Gabriel, he got dropped in the last round. David, it was more of an off balance thing, but he won on points. He rematched him, beat him again, more easier. Then he fought J. Leon Love, a super middleweight, took him out in 2 rounds, smashed him to pieces. J. Leon Love, as we know, he was on the money team Mayweather, all that hype train. Then he fought Anthony Durrell, a former WBC super middleweight champion, took him out in 9 rounds. So that's someone who was his own size again. Roma Alexis Angulo, 26-1. Not really the best opponent, but I think this was during COVID times, to be fair. Stopped him in 10 rounds. Then Ronald Ellis stopped him in 11 rounds, 18-1. Kyron Davis, that wasn't really a good.
Kyron and Ronald are definitely guys to me that are like small for a super middleweight.
Yeah, Kyron's small.
They're on my small side list.
Yeah, then David Lemieux. Yes, we know he's best days are at middleweight. But then Caleb Plant, solid super middleweight, former IBF super middleweight world champion. David Benavidez beat him up, had him running, holding for dear life. Andrade, he's the only one who wanted to take the fight. We know that David's been chasing big fights for a while. We know Canelo's been, shaking, bobbing and weaving from the fight. Andrade was the one who decided to step up and take the fight. He got smashed. People thought that Andrade was going to win still, but yeah, he got smashed up. Vosnik, he's the naturally bigger guy than David Benavidez. Obviously, David went up a weight, and David beat him handedly, unanimous decision. So yeah, David's fought guys his own size before. People like to talk about David Lemieux and Kyron Davis, but there's loads of other guys in there.
He's one of the biggest weight bullies in the sport right now. He's a weight bully, Danny. Let's just keep it real. I mean, come on now. In the last 4 fights, 50% of the guys he's fought in his last 4 fights were not natural light heavyweights or natural super middleweights. Like David Lemieux, I used to think he was small at 160. He didn't look that big. You know what I mean?
But who wants to fight David Benavidez, though? That's the thing. Who wanted to fight him? He was chasing
David Morel Jr. wanted to fight him, and I have no idea why it took so long for the PBC to make David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. I mean, they held titles in the same division for a while concurrently, and they never made the fight happen. So I don't know, was that Plant not wanting Benavidez? Was it Benavidez not wanting Plant? Was a little bit of both? I don't know. But David Morel Jr. was calling out both of those guys for a couple years now. I was out in Minnesota when he fought the Kazakh Idos. And I've got the videos here on this channel. He was calling out David Benavidez back then, right? So, look, to me, they saw high risk, low reward. And I think they at least, this is my opinion, people can differ, they probably wanted David Morel Jr., that is, to get at least 10 fights, maybe more fights than 10 fights before they made this fight. Because at the end of the day, if you beat a Morel Jr. as David Benavidez when he's like 9-0 or 8-0, I mean, you might not get much credit for it, and you'll probably get a lot of shit if you lose the fight or don't dominate the fight, versus if you wait until he's 11-0 to finally make the fight happen. But you know what I really think made this fight happen too, Danny? Their last two performances, right? Both of them were being criticized. Both of them probably said to themselves, man, I just had an off night, but I can beat that guy. You know what I mean? I think that Morel Jr. watching the Benavidez fight against Gavaznik was like, I can beat that guy. And then when David Benavidez was watching the fight with Morel Jr. and Hot Rod, he was like, I didn't have the greatest night the other night, but I can beat that guy. So I think they're both starting to see something in each other that they see as beatable, right? But I'll tell you what, before I go back to you, when I think about this fight, I see, and this might sound disrespectful, but I don't think it's disrespectful because the guy was a legit world champion. I see this kind of like the Zordo fight against Chris Billum-Smith. I see one guy who likes to move forward, likes to throw pretty much very similar combinations, especially when he gets guys up against the ropes, against the guy who can box you, move you, clinch you, spin you, combination punch off of that turn, right? Much in the way Zordo did. I see David Morel Jr. being able to do a lot of that too. Not just because he's a southpaw, but because of his skill set. What are your thoughts?
Look, first off, shout out to Fix Electronics. Anguilla is a solid, strong. Balanga had to bite him. Yeah, I think he super chatted that. So shout him out.
Right there.
Yeah. So to your point, yes, David Morel Jr. He is known to, you know, be able to do the pivots and, you know, turn corners because he does that. He does come. Oh, shout out Remy. Morel has better skill. Yeah. All right, skill wise, yeah, you would go with the Cuban. He has Cuban skills, so yeah, that's not up for debate. That's not under
Santa Clara.
Yeah, that's not up for debate. He is going to have the better skills, but the thing is, there's different variations of skill sets. When we're talking about footwork, then yes, absolutely, David Morel, hands down, he's got the better feet. We know that. But if we're talking about putting combination punches together, David Morel does put them together well, but I don't think he puts them together as fast and as well as David Benavidez, unfortunately. And I know what you're saying about with the Chris Billum-Smith. Oh, when he gets the guys on the ropes, he tees off and stuff. But for one, David Benavidez doesn't eat shots like Chris Billum-Smith. You know what I mean? He's not a man who eats shots. He's got quite good defense. He's not a man who gets tagged in every fight where it's like, oh my god, he's taking massive shots. David's quite cute in there. He does the lean back, he slips and slides, and his defense is even getting better. As I said, he's been under the tutelage of Guillermo Rigondeaux, who fought just last week, funny enough, with a first round KO via a body shot out in Miami. Eddie Hearn was out there with Cornerman. But yeah, but when it comes to this fight, I just see that David Morel, he was able to get outboxed by Hot Rod, and Hot Rod ain't no, he ain't no serious boxer like that. People on paper, you would say, oh yeah, David Morel Jr. has all the skills advantage over Hot Rod, but Hot Rod was outboxing David Morel for big periods of the fight. There's people who arguably say that Morel lost the fight on points, even on the fan scorecard. If you check it out, the fan scorecard had Hot Rod winning the fight. and why, and also when it comes to why this fight's got made or why it took so long, you have to remember PBC, they like to drag things out. They like to drag with opponents, they like to drag it and milk the cow. But with this Riyadh season, there's no even the casuals now, they are much more educated than they was before. Now you can't trick people like before. This is why Tank Davis has had to postpone his fight, because he can't sell it like before. The jig is up. And that's the thing with these fighters. They probably thought, go to 175, drag them out a bit, let Beterbiev and Bivol, you know, smash each other to pieces. But when they've realized, hold on, in their last fights, who can we put them up against next? We can't even give them a date. And both of these guys, to be fair, when you look at their activity compared to most of the PBC roster, they are actually quite active fighters. David Benavidez fights on average every 7 months. David Morel Jr. fights on average every 8 months, but between his last fight and this fight, it will be 6 months, so it'll be even more quicker than his usual 8 months. But that is actually active for PBC fighters. Usually PBC fighters fight once every 12 months, once every 18 months, maybe even once every 24 months.
Gary Russell Jr., Cool Boy Steph, guys on that kind of a trajectory.
Errol Spence.
Right,
yeah, these guys are very natural. When you're talking about
Eddie Garcia.
Yeah, so when you talk about Lara,
I could keep interrupting you for the next half hour with these names.
The list goes on. So these guys have shown that these two guys have shown that they're more hungry and have bigger desires than most of the roster. And this is also probably a factor as to why the fights got made. They pushed the fight. People say, "Oh, I leave it up to my team. I leave it up to my team." No. Fighters can push for the fight. When you want activity, sometimes you have to be able to be willing to take a pay cut, not try and rinse it and rinse the cow dry. And now with Riyadh season, you've got to fight real fights. These guys want to get on the next Latino night. The winner of this will probably get on the next Latino night against the Bivol or Beterbiev, because as you said, this is for the bronze medal.
It's a bronze medal. This is a third place matchup. This is a third place matchup in the World Cup. This is what happened.
Exactly. And who wins this? You get straight onto the next Latino night against Beterbiev or Bivol, because both guys, I think, will be able to sell, especially Benavidez, I think, because he even though he pushes the Ecuadorian thing harder, he more reps it, but he does clutch onto the little Mexican thing because obviously they're more supportive and there's a bigger history with them.
There's more Mexicans in the United States too. I mean, it's one of the largest ethnic groups or national groups in the whole country.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got a good base. So if he cuts on a Latino night against Beterbiev or Bivol, you know, it sells. It's a good main event. Do you know what I'm saying? Just like Zurdo, he's a Mexican guy. So I think this propels them and projects them onto a Latino night, which is what they're probably going to aspire to get onto a Riyadh season card, because PBC don't have enough dates.
They don't. Let's go to some comments and I'm going to go to some scenarios. Kenny, K.O. Kenny. My mano a mano compatriot. Morel Jr. should be calling out the more known, more accomplished fighter. I don't give him credit for that. Who should he be calling out? That's the question. Let us know in the chat, Kenny, who you're referring to. Who should Morel Jr. be calling out? Big up to Carlos M, Chicano Prophet, Remy's over here, and we see a few people in the house. Fix Electronics, Trey P. He's talking about Hot Rod, who you just mentioned. Trey P says Hot Rod has feet and great movement, not stationary target, unlike Benavidez. And let's see what we else have here. That's it. That's most of what I wanted to address. So look, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you don't know, now you know. This is Punchlines, and today I'm joined by none other than Danny Glover from Fight Fan TV Live. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and check out his channel too. I will make sure that I post the link in the description to this video for all of those watching on demand.
Gorilla than the planet of the apes. I write a punchline and plant it on your face. Eat a punch that you ain't even got to taste. Here's a shot that you ain't even got to chase.
All right, so before we get into the weigh-in footage, I want to give you some scenarios, right? Let's go through the intangibles first, and then we'll go through scenarios in the ring, right? So intangible number one, power. Who do you give the edge to?
Power. I think they're even.
Really?
Yeah.
I got to go with David Morrell Jr. Look, and one of the reasons I'm going with that as a pick, especially now, is we saw Trevor McCumbee really kind of hurt and drop Caleb Plant a few times, right? We saw Canelo finish Caleb Plant clean. Caleb Plant survived the entire fight against Benavidez, so I don't know.
He was holding for dear life, though. Come on, man.
You got to get that clean finish, fam. You got to get
he was holding for dear life, man.
I've talked to you about that. I've talked to my man Joe Habib about that. Caleb was doing a lot of hugging in that fight.
So, yeah, of course you can survive if you're hugging. Of course you can survive if you're hugging.
Hugging and moving, and I don't know what his corner was doing there. It's close. It's close. In terms of percentages, though, in terms of knockout percentage, I think that the edge goes to David Morrell Jr., right?
Well, of course, when you've got 11 fights, it's easy when you've got 11 fights, though, compared to a man with, 30 fights?
So Lennox Allen in fight number 3, Danny. Lennox Allen, right? Lennox Lewis, but it's still Lennox Allen. Okay. Power up for debate. Chat, let us know who you give the edge to in power. Let's see what you guys think. Tony says Benavidez is a volume puncher finisher. I agree with that. I don't agree with this. Come on, bro. 11-0, 9 KOs. Lennox Allen in his third fight. I don't even want Danny to look at who David Benavidez fought in his third fight. Don't even look it up. Don't even look it up. All right, so moving on.
I've looked it up. It's a guy 1-on-1.
So he fought a guy who's 1-1. David Benavidez fought a guy that was, what was he, 21-0? Right?
Yeah. His
third fight. Yeah, so there you go. So don't come to me with Morel Jr. has fought nobody.
Well, Benavidez was 17, though.
Put a standout Kazakh amateur, you right? Top tier contender in the super middleweight division. Sent him into a coma, man. I mean, that's power. That's power, right? That is. You know what? Edge goes to David Morrell Jr.
Yeah. You know what? When I think of that, because I remember
changes it. The coma changes it.
There was one where he knocked a guy out in the first round recently as well, actually, and when he loads up, I would say that one punch power I'd probably give it to Morrell.
When David Morrell Jr. sits down on his shots,
yeah,
bro, he's nobody to play with. We could go to the Casares KO video footage if we have to, but that was serious. So I'm giving the edge in power to David Morrell Jr. Speed, Danny, go for it.
Speed, then that's going to be Benavidez. If we're talking, what we've got to talk, we've got to talk about. What we talk about, hands or feet?
Let's go hand speed.
Well, hand speed is David Benavidez, hands down.
Okay, I'm gonna agree with hand speed and combination, just because honestly he shoe shines his combinations half the time against the ropes. Let's keep it real. He's not really putting his full weight and body into a lot of these shots. He's flurrying, once he gets a guy hurt, he's trying to get him out of there. I'm going to go with Benavidez for speed because he does shoe shine a lot. Shout out to the shoe shine. Shout out to my man Philly Drew Irish as well. And Dave from the 408. But I'm going to actually give the edge in quickness in terms of one punch quickness, right? I'm going to give that edge to David Morrell Jr.
No.
I'll give you an example. I used to give Sugar Shane Mosley in his prime. I would have said that he had faster combinations than Floyd in his prime. But I think that on a one punch or two punches, right? Definitely one punch. I'm giving the edge to Floyd in terms of quickness. So I'm going to go speed, David Benavidez. I'm going quickness, David Morrell Jr.
Quickness, I'll still give it to David Benavidez because even when you look at when they throw their jab, David Benavidez's jab is actually faster than Morrell's. And when you talk about two punch combination, like a straight 1-2, Come on, they're not even close. Remember, Morel loads. He sits down on his shot, so his punches automatically are going to lose speed compared to a man who's, he doesn't need to sit down on his shots as much. So it takes Morel's shots come out slower than David Benavidez in every aspect, whether it's quickness or natural hand speed. Benavidez has that. But if you're talking about foot speed, then Morel's got it. But when it comes to the hands and the fast twitch of the shoulders and arms and hands, then Benavidez has got that one.
All right. Next up, foot speed, footwork. Put it into one category.
Yeah. Morel Jr.
All right, we're in agreement on that. Let's look at the criteria of scoring, right? Effective aggression.
Effective aggression?
Yes.
But David Benavidez, I'll give it to him because he is he's definitely more aggressive and effective with the aggression.
I won't even disagree with that one. Ring generalship. Well, you got to go to the school of Cuban boxing, right? You got to, right? We're in agreement. All right. Clean, effective punching.
Clean, effective punching.
They removed defense as a criteria, unfortunately. Here,
really?
They didn't even tell anybody. You know how I found out? I got a ride to Philly from my man Keith Idek, my friend Keith Idek, and he broke the story. Nobody knew about it at all. He told me, I had no idea about it. The worst thing is fighters didn't even know that the rule change happened. So they've eliminated defense as a scoring category in the ABC. So make that make sense. I literally just learned. So I'm not going to win. We can't include it. I'm going to give clean. What was the last one I said? Clean, effective punching, right?
Yes.
I'm going David Morel Jr. You can follow me with your pick. I'm going David Morel Jr. because I was at the Idos fight, and I'm telling you, those punches were clean. Those punches were effective. Matter of fact, those punches were too effective. So effective, in fact, that dude got stretchered out of the ring and sent to the ER where he spent multiple weeks before being medically cleared to fly home. So clean and effective. I got to go with David.
This is interesting.
And I got to go with the Caceres knockout too, man.
Yeah, but do you know what it is? It's when a man. But the thing is, all right. Well, I'll give it to Morel, but I'm hoping there's another category that comes up because that will be a factor as well.
There is. There's two more categories to come up, right? So we're done with the scoring categories, right? We're done with the street fighter categories. I call the first categories the street fighter categories. You know, the old video game, right? You got power, speed, quickness. You got your levels, your power levels that go up and down. So we're done with those. We're done with the scoring criteria, right? So then we got to go to the other criterias, right? I'm going to throw one at you. Ring IQ. I mean, I got to go with the guy who knows what the multiplication tables is. I'm going with David Morel Jr. Straight out of the Cuban school. Ring IQ.
No, do you know what? It's not as simple as just looking at skills because Ring IQ is knowing what to do in different various situations. I think
we're gonna get into situations in a moment.
Yeah, I think David Benavidez has more Ring IQ because he has a lot more ring experience and been in more scenarios and overcome the better competition. So he would have learned more in his professional fights. So I would have to go with actually David Benavidez in Ring IQ, surprisingly, because if you're doing just a normal basic eye test of two guys shadow boxing, you're always going to look at David Morel, ain't you? But when you actually look at and do fight studies between both of their careers, because David Morel hasn't had enough pro experience, and it's not like even in the amateurs he was just some crazy Olympian world championship fighter either, which is quite surprising for a Cuban. I would go with Ring IQ with David Benavidez.
Wow. Okay, so we differ on that one. We differ on that one. Let's go to another one, right? Often overlooked, but not by guys like me and Danny. All right, like we said, we're both licensed cornermen here. Cornerman. Who we going? We got Ronnie Shields versus Benavidez Sr. Who you got?
What, the better cornerman?
Better cornerman. Yeah. You know, the people used to walk around all over the place with the BLM t-shirts, right? Black Lives Matter. Yeah. I got to make a new one that says coaches matter, right? Coaches matter. So talk to me, because I think coaches matter. Who do you got?
I've got Ronnie Shields.
Benavidez Sr. or Ronnie Shields.
I'd have to go with Ronnie Shields because he is the more experienced coach. He has the more decorated accolades of world champions produced. I think even if you asked Jose Benavidez Sr., he would even say that. He would even, tip his hat, tip his sombrero to Ronnie Shields. So, yeah, I'd go with Ronnie Shields. There's no shame in that.
There you go. Experienced.
Well, that has to go to David Benavidez. And that was part of my caveat as to, you see, when you're talking about punch, what was it? Punch?
Clean, effective punching.
Clean, effective punching, yeah, because the caveat to that is David Morrell hasn't been in with as many high-level guys as David Benavidez, and they haven't even got any mutual opponents where you can really compare who was really hitting clean and effective on the same guy, because that's normally the best way to differentiate, two guys. Even though, all right, fair enough, if you catch a man 10 years apart, there's two different fights, but they haven't got any mutual guys in common. I don't even know if they've got any sparring in common, where I haven't seen any videos of sparring partners saying they've been shared the ring with both to give an account between the two yet either.
Yeah, the only person I've ever interviewed who sparred David Benavidez, believe it or not, was Christian and Billy. And apparently their sparring session when they were both amateurs, they did a France versus Cuba co-training camp thing. You're familiar with this. A lot of countries outside the USA send their teams over to Cuba to do like mini camps out there and stuff. And even pro fighters go up there. I think Chris Eubank Jr. spent some time in Cuba, actually.
Yes, yeah.
A lot of other people as well. Anyways, the point is they had a dual training thing, and David Morrell was like pretty much running through all of the French fighters until he got to Mbili, and they it was pay-per-view, that sparring session. So yeah, he's the only person I've ever interviewed. My wife has a category. We won't necessarily go into that one here, but she likes to look at the fighters, how should we say, wives, partners, girlfriends, who is the hottest one. I'll leave that one to the chat and to the comment section. You guys can chime in on that. That does have a factor in some aspects. I mean, my man Daniel Dynamite Dubois, after eating that pitaya and that acai down in Brazil, he I mean, I don't know what's in those Brazilian superfoods, but he got much better since hanging out with his girlfriend, introducing him to the superfoods down there. So I don't know. I'm gonna leave that one alone. But if you guys want to comment on that in the chat or in the comments, feel free to. I know my wife always loves to watch the fighters coming into the arena when she's watching the fights with me, and make comments about their partners. So we've run through that. Any other categories that are worth mentioning?
Chin.
Ooh, I don't know. That's like a tie to me. Chin is a tie.
Yeah.
I got to say chin is a tie. Oh, yeah. I got to go one more. Athleticism. Just natural athleticism. I got to go David Morel Jr.
Yeah. You're picking these categories where your guy's gonna. These are. You're like Frank Warren. You really. Oh, you're funny. That's true.
Okay, I'll go to another one that's always brought up in boxing. You know, they like to say that guys hit their levels when they get to the mid and late 20s, right? Especially late 20s. They call it man strength. Who has the more man strength of the two?
I think Benavidez has more man strength.
I gave you one there. I gave you one. He likes to bully his guys up against the ropes and then shoe shine them to a finish. So let's start looking at scenarios in the fight. By the way, guys, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Make sure you also subscribe to my brother Danny's channel, Danny from Fight Fan TV Live, where we're also streaming. And if you are watching there, make sure you stream at my channel too, or not necessarily this video, but in the future, like and subscribe to both channels. So I wanted to get into these scenarios with you, right? Ding ding, round one. They shape up center of the ring, right? What are you seeing there? How is it playing out?
How it's playing out?
Ding ding, round one.
Benavidez comes out with a high guard because he knows, Morel Jr. is going to be looking to whip shots around the corner. So he's coming out with a high guard. He sounds quite straight up, Benavidez. He has quite straight knees. He's putting a little dip in the knees now. He's probably, learned that from Rigondeaux and on that a bit, but obviously he's not as cute. He's popping out the jab. Morell's circling. He's just trying to get ring generalship, trying to, work out and feel his way around. I think that Morel is going to be taking a look in the first round, while Benavidez is going to be establishing that sort of, he does that thing where when he jabs, he stamps his foot on the canvas. I don't know if you noticed that. So I think he would take it on just general output, whereas Morel would be more, changing the angles and having a look. So he don't mind giving up the first round, I think, in that scenario.
Yeah, I see a similar first round. David Benavidez and David Morel Jr. jockeying for position, center ring. I see David Benavidez with a high guard, right? He likes to catch and counter off the jab. He likes to parry a lot of the work of his opponents. So I definitely see him doing that. I see him trying to double up the jab, right? I see him throwing 1-2s at first. And if he can get his opponent to the ropes, then kind of bending his knees a little bit like he tends to do, and then trying to up the ante with combination punching against the ropes, likely towards the end of the round, maybe as a round stealer. But I see a lot of measuring out. I see a lot of like shaping up, looking each other over, getting the timing down. I see one guy high guard. I see another guy a little bit looser in his stance, really trying to work behind the right jab and hooking around Benavidez's high guard with his right hook. That's kind of how I see the first round going. All right. Yeah. As the fight progresses, right, I think a lot of what ends up happening is going to come down to whether or not each guy's power is respected by the other, right? Because if Benavidez figures out, after adjusting at 175, after absorbing punches from Gvozdyk, who, by the way, hits quite hard, Gvozdyk. He's no slouch as a light heavyweight. Benavidez took a lot of, I would say, unwarranted criticism there, as Morel Jr. did too, because I think both of those fighters are really good fighters, especially Gvozdyk, former unified light heavyweight champion of the world. But back to what I was saying, if as the fight gets into round 2, round 3, round 4, and Benavidez becomes comfortable with whatever it is Morel Jr. is throwing his way and feels as if he can ride out the power, continue to catch and counter in the high guard, continue to use his strength, as we talked about earlier, the man's strength, and get Morel Jr. into uncomfortable positions, he kind of more bullies his opponents to the rope as opposed to forces them there with cutting off the ring and footwork, I think, usually. Although even though he is flat-footed, it's not as if he has bad feet, because he doesn't. He's usually balanced in punch position. I'm talking about Benavidez here, Danny. But I do see him, if Morel Jr. doesn't get his respect, getting him closer and closer towards the ropes where I think he does his best work. If, on the other hand, Morel Jr. gets into a position in round 3, round 4, where he's feeling his power, he's landing 1s and 2s, he's landing the 3, hooking around the high guard, he's stunning Benavidez, right? He's visibly hurting Benavidez, busting him up. That's where I think the fight will become very, very interesting. If Benavidez comfortably handles Morel Jr.'s power, by midway through the fight, I see it going towards Benavidez, but I don't think that's going to happen. Danny, what are your thoughts?
Yes, and it also comes down to conditioning in a high tempo fight, because this fight, I don't think Morrell's going to be in a fight where it's going to be fought at such a high pace, because we know Benavidez is going to put it on him. So, you know, we know that when you're running, when you're moving on your back legs, not necessarily running, I don't want to use that word, but when you're moving on the back foot, which I think that Morrell will be doing for a large part of the fight, we know that your hamstrings will start to tire. So if his hamstrings start to tire and he becomes more stationary, especially when as he dips down and stuff like that, Benavidez starts throwing in and landing body shots in there, body shots through the middle, body shots around the side of the ribs, and starts to slow down David Morrell, because that's another factor that a lot of people don't factor in, because, you know, everyone's used to the, you know, the blistering headshot punches, but Benavidez invests a lot of his power punches when he does sit down in his shots into the body. He puts in big body shots. He takes your hand away, slams in punches over the top of your defense. So I think the body shots will be the key, because trying to pin him and pull his hand down and slam shots, Morrell's a bit too evasive for that. So I think it'll kind of be like what he was trying to do, what he did with Andrade, another guy who is elusive, mover, slick. You know what I mean? So doing that kind of stuff, if he slows Morrell down, he's going to get broken up. I think Morrell is, you know, he's naturally bigger, so I imagine he's more durable and more tougher than Andrade, a man who's been on the floor a few times in the past before. But we know Cubans, also another factor. We know they don't always live the best lifestyle outside the ring. They can get caught up in the glitz and the glamour. So when it comes down to, you know, a high intensity fight, you know, they start to break down, and you know, Benavidez, I just believe he will take over the fight.
It's funny you mentioned that, because one thing that there's a couple things that separate David Benavidez from a lot of other Cuban fighters, right? Sorry, David Morrell. Thank you. The Battle of the Davids. I keep saying the wrong one. I've done it a couple times. Thank you, Danny. Number one, David Morel Jr. does not live in Miami. David Morel Jr. made the conscious decision to locate himself between Minnesota, where he lives and where he started to learn English, and Houston, where he trains with Ronnie Shields, neither of which have large Cuban populations. They have some Cubans, but not a lot. Not like Miami, which is typically where a lot of Cuban fighters have faced distractions. Number two, and I really appreciate this about David Benavidez. David Benavidez, unlike, I'll use the example of the welterweight Cuban that fought Pacquiao, remind me, Yordenis Ugas.
Yeah.
Yordenis Ugas trashes Cuba, trashes the Cuban government, doesn't speak kindly of his experience in Cuba at all. A country, an education system, a sporting system that literally invested in him and made him what he is today. Obviously, he had to come to the United States and work as an amateur fighter. But all of those skills, that education he received was in Cuba, right? Trashes his country. David Morel Jr. doesn't trash his country. David Morel Jr. doesn't trash his island. David Morel Jr. talks about coming to the United States to become a pro fighter, right? But does not trash his people and his country, and the education system and sporting system he came from, as part of that. So I appreciate that. But again, there's the distraction issue. He's in Minnesota. That hopefully, if you're backing David Benavidez, those won't be the case. Big up to Remy with another super chat. He has a category, Danny. Who cuts the ring off better?
I think David Benavidez does.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Is that because of the last fight that each one was in?
In that fight, and also in the Caleb Plant fight, and in the Andrade fight, where he was cutting the ring off, and because remember, you got to remember, guys like Plant, Andrade,
yeah,
these guys are known to be difficult to pin down.
I look. I'm going to agree with you on this one, and it would be very disingenuous for me to try to make the case that David Morel Jr. does it. Although you could make the case, but I'm not going to make that case because I think that he hasn't had to do it against an Andrade who is tricky to deal with, or a Caleb Plant who's also tricky to deal with. So I'll give you that one. We got another one coming up here. Who's the better salsa dancer? It's another category. Salsa.
Well, I would have to go with Morrell because I remember I watched a video of David Benavidez with his wife, and they were talking about how they met, where they met, and they was asking him to dance, and he said that he was shy because he can't dance really. So he was shy to start dancing with her at first.
Hold up. See, it's funny. I said that category came up. I came up with that category. Okay. And you know what? This guy who's a salsa dancer is going to cut off the ring better. I'm changing my answer. David Morel Jr.
No. Salsa. That don't mean you're going to cut off the ring better.
Oh, yeah. That footwork, bro. The footwork. Man. David,
we've given him footwork.
David Morel is spinning women around, turning them around, lifting them up, doing all kind of crazy things. It's David Morel Jr.
No, we've given him footwork. This is a different category. Cutting off the ring is different. He's unproven in cutting off the ring against anybody of any note. He's a mover, as in backwards mover. He's not a man who cuts it off forward.
Have you seen him dancing to Chris Brown songs in these training videos?
Yeah, but he's Cuban.
I know you've seen. Huh?
Of course he can dance. He's Cuban.
Yeah. He's cutting off the ring. All right. So I gotta go to a little bit of this because, believe it or not, I was actually a little surprised, Danny, when I saw these guys facing off. Because I was under the impression, call me crazy, that David Benavidez was the bigger guy. Your guy's not the bigger guy. My guy's the bigger guy. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen.
Thank you.
The bigger guy.
No, he's not.
Huh? Let us know, Chad. Who's the bigger guy? Look at the head. He's got a bigger head, bro. Bigger shoulders. It's the bigger guy. Ooh, this is a good fight, Danny. I can't wait for this fight. I actually want to go to. I'm thinking about going to Vegas for this.
No, but look, wait, side by side. Let them turn around. Who's broader?
Ooh, look at those shoulders. What's with all those belts? This guy's got more belts than Teofimo Lopez.
Well, he's a two-time WBC super middleweight champion.
He's got more belts than Teofimo Lopez at a Canelo post-fight press conference, man. What's going on here? What are all these belts? Oh, because he got the interim belt too. Two legit ones and then the interim belt.
Yeah, Morrell's a big dude. He's a big dude, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what the funny thing is? I don't know. I don't have a lot of belief in Fulton Jr. against Brendan Figueroa. I'm picking Figueroa in that fight. What about you?
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with Figueroa as well.
Well, there you go, guys. There was another moment where they were kind of jockeying at each other, going back and forth. I don't know if I want to play that part, but yeah, I think based on that, David Benavidez is not the bigger guy. So I don't know if those bully tactics are going to work for your boy, Danny.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. He's fought big guys before. Anthony Durrell was a big dude. He got punched up.
Yeah, he did. All right. Last question I had for you, Danny, and then the floor is yours. You could take this wherever you want to go before we wrap it up. Right? How does this fight play out? We looking at TKO, KO, unanimous decision, split decision, majority decision, draw. I know you're not going with the draw because you're going with David Benavidez. So let me just point it out. Let's just cut through all the shit. Can David Benavidez knock out David Morel Jr. Yes or no?
He can stop him.
Okay, so he can stop him. Will David Benavidez knock out or stop David Morel Jr.? Yes or no?
Yes.
To the head, to the body. How do you see it? Is he? How does the stoppage happen?
He's gonna break him down with the body shots, but ultimately it will be a headshot. No, actually, do you know what? I think it will be a body shot that will stop David Morel Jr. Similarly to how Ajit Kabayel stopped
Makhmudov.
No. The Cuban. What's the Frank Sanchez?
Frank Sanchez. Oh shit.
Yeah, how about that? Because that's what happens when that lack of Cuban dedication gets hit to the body.
Yeah. Can David Morel Jr. knock out David Benavidez? Yeah.
No.
Yes. Will he knock out David Benavidez? Probably not. You know, I don't see David Benavidez's dad, Jose Benavidez Sr., doing what probably should happen in this fight, which is mercifully throwing in the towel, right? I see a frustrated David Benavidez. I see a swollen Benavidez. I see a David Benavidez really taking a beating in rounds 9 through 12. I see Danny on his sofa there in his bathrobe, very concerned, worried about needing to go to the tissue box, right? And I see David Benavidez losing a unanimous decision to David Morel Jr. But it's a fight that should be stopped. He's got the tissues already ready to go. All right. Remy's telling me to check my messages, so I'm guessing he's telling me to check my messages on.
Shout out to Virtuoso. He says, I think Benavidez bringing back Memo Heredia can help him deal with strength and condition. He showed a lack thereof in his last fight versus Gvozdyk. Interesting point there.
That's a fact. Big up to the community, by the way, and big up to none other than Remy. Salute, Remy. Between the super chat and the production that he's providing tonight, I got to give Remy full credit for being one of the staples here on this channel. He's got a video for us to go through, Danny, and this is the last one I'm gonna ask you to comment on. Who's more confident going into this fight, David Benavidez or David Morel Jr.? Let's look at the evidence. Let's have a look. Let's go.
Está riendo como te nos queda también, ¿o qué? ¿Ya? Vamos a ver. ¿Qué ves esa pinche quijada? Vamos a ver. Tú vas a ver también. Vas a mirar. Vas a mirar. Vas a ver el pinche pueblo. Vas a ver nunca vi. Vas a mirar. Ok, vamos a mirar. Vamos a mirar. ¿Y quién eres tú? ¿Ah? ¿Qué has haciendo?
He's asking, who are you? To him, ¿quién eres tú? And he was going, they were one of them, I think it was David Benavidez, was saying, vamos a ver, we will see.
Okay, I want to see him. I'm break it. Watch. Oh, you want to do something? We take.
Oh, your boy's daddy had to step in there, Danny. He had to save him. What's up with that? Huh? I think we can answer the question. I don't even think we got to look anymore. David Morel Jr. is more confident.
No.
Oh, another member from Team Benavidez is getting involved.
Hey, it's not like that. Just because they get it. Let's see what you guys want. Let's go. Let's get out the way. Cool. We're not even touching. Come on. This is what you wanted.
I think this is what Ghoul from Boxing King Media was referring to with the dad bod. It's not looking that good for your boy right now, Danny. I'm just keeping it real. It's not looking that good for your boy right here. It's really not.
He's got 11 weeks.
he looking like Tyson Fury before the Sefet Safari fight.
Yeah. He just remember they just had another child, so maybe that's why. But listen,
What do you mean they had like? You're acting like he carried. You're acting like he's feeding the child. Let me tell you something.
When she gets cravings, he's getting cravings.
I got kicked off of Monday Night Smoke once for saying this, but I don't play that game. I don't. Yeah, the whole you start as this, then you become that, and then I don't do that. Okay, so the mom gave birth to the child. All right, the dad was involved, obviously, but I don't see what that has to do with him putting on weight.
Yeah, because he's going to be around her when she's getting cravings. He's going to be, comfort eating with her. But hey, listen, he'll be in shape. He always turns up in good nick. David Morrell weren't exactly in the best of condition himself. I saw some biddies there. I saw a bit of fat.
Woo, that's your boy. That's who's winning. Huh? That's who's winning in January.
February.
Dude's looking like, again, he's looking like Tyson Fury before the Pianetta fight.
You're funny. But hey, as Tony Pugilis said, Danny with the "How'd you like me now?" That's what it will be like after when my nephew gets his hand raised. And your boy weren't in top condition there either, man. He was looking heavy. Man.
There you go. All right, Danny, before we break off, because I know it's late over there in London and it's past dinner time here in New York City. Quickly, your thoughts on the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, I'll call it contest.
Yes. My thoughts on it. Well done to Mike Tyson. You got the bag. Once upon a time, Jake Paul was actually fighting on his undercard when Mike Tyson did his exhibition against Roy Jones. Jake Paul was on his undercard, so they've been in cahoots for a while. There was times I think both of them helped each other out in there. I think in the opening round when Jake was on the run, there was little signals where he was probably telling Mike to chill it out, don't get too heavy in the first 2 rounds. But as Mike Tyson started to tire, and I noticed people saying that Jake was taking it easy. Jake was loading up his punches. He was bowling them over, looking at the floor, doing his usual bowl over punches. When they're saying, oh, he could have knocked Mike out, no, he couldn't, because he was hitting Mike with some big shots, and Mike took him because Mike's got a big neck. He's actually very durable. And the thing is also that what people are like, oh, he could have took him out. But remember, Jake Paul doesn't fight like Logan Paul. If it was Logan Paul, remember, Logan Paul starts windmilling him in and really going ham and everyone.
Logan Paul has, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, his boxing skills are like a 1. He's just very athletic.
Yeah,
Jake
and he
had some skills.
Yeah, and he throws them in bunches and stuff. Whereas Jake Paul doesn't throw combinations. When you look at all his knockouts, it's all one hitter quitters, usually overhand rights or just a big bowl over the top. And he was throwing those shots. He doesn't throw combinations. So he was never going to tee off on Mike because he's no tee off on nobody. He couldn't even tee off on basketball players or old Anderson Silva. So people going, oh, why didn't he go in? He never goes in. He looks normally for the counter shot, for you to walk into the shot and him to catch you on the end of it to double up the power. Even towards the end, Mike Tyson thought, you know what? I can't actually explode off this leg anymore. I'm too slow on the feet now, and I'm impaired because I've got a bit of a knee injury. I'm just going to go defensive. And he just started bobbing and weaving and slipping the shots. And Jake realizing, you know what? Me actually trying to go for the knockout and him evading my shots is going to make me look a bit muggy. So now I'm just going to do the salute. Yes, sensei. Thank you, sensei. And that was that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Number one, I thought Mike Tyson looked amazing for a 58-year-old. I don't know how anyone thought a 58-year-old was going to beat a 27-year-old. There aren't many sports where that can happen. I don't know, maybe golf, fishing, darts, bowling, not boxing, that's for sure. Imagine your favorite footballer, right?
Pele being
rolled out at 58 into a Copa Libertadores or a World Cup or whatever, even a friendly. would anybody really expect him to be competitive with the top tier players on the pitch at that time? Absolutely not.
And think about this. I've got a 6-year-old son. He likes running. He likes athletics. He looks up to Usain Bolt. Now, in 20 years' time, he's going to be 26. In 20 years' time, Usain Bolt is going to be 57. So really, so 21 years time, my son will be 27 and Usain Bolt will be 58. Now, if they get on the track and go for a 100-meter dash, my son's going to beat him. But does that mean
100%?
What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything, does it?
Thank you. So now there's talk about Jake potentially fighting Conor McGregor. I was hoping he'd try to take on one of the cruiserweights. But to me, I think he's pretty much solidified himself now as an event fighter more than a guy who's actually trying to legitimately rise the ranks in the cruiserweight division. Haven't got an opportunity to hear your thoughts on Boots or on Bam and their last fights. What were your thoughts there, Danny?
Boots, well, it's tough going against a guy who we saw the first fight. He had good better be movement side to side, but he wasn't trying to engage in a fight. This time he was more engaging, was catching Boots with more shots. I think Boots was trying to make the fight more exciting because he knew he needs to market himself to get himself, he's trying to be the next pay-per-view guy. Because remember, Matchroom, AJ's the last pay-per-view guy right now. They haven't got a guy who's ready, waiting at the table.
Connor Ben was supposed to be that guy, right?
He was supposed to be, and he would have been had that fight not fell through. I think he would have been the next guy. But right now they don't have a guy ready to go when Anthony Joshua retires. So Boots needs to make himself in more exciting fights. Hence, I think he got caught more in this fight, taking more risks. Obviously, when he goes against someone like Virgil Ortiz, it'll be a lot more defensively responsible and show what he's really about. Do you know what I mean? But he was in a tough position there. Who was the other fighter you was asking? Oh, Bam Rodriguez. Oh, yeah, he looked good, man. He looked good. I can't really say much else. Good finish.
He looks spectacular, and one of the best fights that can be possibly made in the sport, brethren, is Bam against Puma Martinez. Those two guys are always in exciting fights. You put them together, that's fireworks. That's match meeting gunpowder as far as I'm concerned, as it relates to excitement. And lastly, Zurdo last Saturday against Billum Smith. We never spoke about the fight before it happened. We didn't speak about the fight after it happened. What were your thoughts on that fight before, during, and after it?
Well, before the fight, I had Chris Billum Smith winning. I thought Chris Billum Smith would be able to pull it off because, Zurdo is a man coming up from super middleweight, light heavyweight, even though he is a big guy who was weighing in 205 pounds on fight night down at those weights. But when I saw him fight Joe Smith Jr. and there was another guy, I just thought, don't really look all that. And I thought with Chris Billum Smith's momentum, beating Isaac Chamberlain, Lawrence Okoli, Richard Riakporhe, beating all the London man them, I thought, yeah, he should be able to do this. And this was the fight he'd been calling for as well after the Richard Riakporhe fight at Selhurst Park, which I was at. He said, but he was expecting it to be in Vegas, hence he was screaming, Vegas, baby. It was on Latino night. The first round, Zurdo looked very slow and ponderous, and I was like, oh, he looks slow and ponderous. And Chris Billum Smith hurt him.
Can I ask you something? Why was that fight at Selhurst Park? Neither of those guys are like Crystal Palace people, are they?
Richard Riakporhe claims Crystal Palace.
Oh, I was unaware of that. I apologize.
Yeah. He supports Crystal Palace, even though he did support Millwall before. But yeah.
Well, you're allowed to switch over.
Yeah, you can switch over
up to a certain age. What's the last age that you can switch over?
18.
I agree.
Yeah. So what's it? The first round I gave Chris Billum Smith. He hurt Zurdo. Then all of a sudden, from round 2, it was a different Gilberto Ramirez in there. All of a sudden, he became faster. He's pivoting, changing the angles, hitting with combinations. He just started looking really silky in there. That wasn't a typical Mexican fighter, but I thought maybe he thought he could try and meet fire with fire. Realized maybe Chris is a lot stronger and hits a lot harder than he imagined. And he switched up the tactics. So he was able to switch to plan B from round 2. And when he switched to plan B, Chris didn't have an answer for it. I had it 117-111 to Zurdo. And Chris Smith showed amazing toughness, got really bad cut, took some big shots, walked into some good counter punches, counter straight lefts, took some heavy body shots, and he stuck in there. People talking about, oh, the corner should probably throw the towel in. No, this is a unification fight, and Chris his knees was never buckling and wobbling. Yeah, he was taking a bit of a shellacking, but he was always in the fight, and he was coming back with rallies and stuff. So yeah, Zurdo looked really good, and I'm looking forward to when he does finally do the unification with Jayapataya. But Jayapataya is fighting the Turkish guy based out of Germany, Hüseyin Sinkara, on December something, or is it January?
It's not on the Riyadh season card?
No, it is Riyadh season, but it's in Australia, in the Gold Coast. That is on the 8th of January.
Okay. Well, that's his number one contender in the IBF.
Yes.
Right? So
yeah.
if you're Zurdo, though, right, you try to go Opataya next, or you do the winner of Rositsky and Noel Mikhailian.
I think you go for the winner of Mikhailian, and then
go to that undisputed fight with 3 of the 4 titles, right?
Yeah, so you get a great deal.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Danny, listen, man, this has been a pleasure. We're both very excited about this fight, David Benavidez against David Morel Jr. I'm sure we're going to do more content related to this fight as the fight approaches, after the fight. And if I don't go out to Vegas, we got to do a watch along and do what we're doing tonight. Stream all channels. Next time, though, we'll do it to my YouTube, your YouTube, my X, your X, my Instagram, your Instagram. Bring everybody over to Bretren's Boxing. Bretren's Bias Boxing.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're not in Vegas, then let's do the watch along. I think it'll be great color commentary from both of us. I'm sure those of you who are in the chat would love to tune in. So yeah, make sure that you like, subscribe both channels. Make sure those of you who are tuning in on my channel now, make sure you subscribe to Maestro A right now on YouTube. Follow him on Twitter, Twitex, as Basic Kid says. Also on Instagram.
Yep.
And for those of you from my show's channel, make sure you follow me at Fight Fan TV Live on all platforms, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and on Twitex. You can find me at Danny Glover FFTV. That's Danny Glover Foxtrot Tango Victor.
There you go. Fight Fan TV, FFTV. I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. I want to ask you all, hit the like button, all right? Hit the subscribe button to Danny's channel and to my channel. If you're watching on demand, drop a comment. I'm going to leave the link to his channel in the description of this video, all right? And hit the notification bell. You want to know when we go live, all right? Because we got busy schedules. Danny's a full-time worker. I'm a full-time worker. In addition to that, we run clubs, we're in gyms, we're training people, and then after that, we do this, all right? So spread the love, share the video, like, subscribe, notification, all of that good stuff. We'll be back for more. This was a special edition of Punchlines with my man Danny from Fight Fan TV Live, and we will see you on the next one.